Good morning. Good morning. I know everybody is joining us. We have a jam-packed agenda again for you today. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a few moments. All right, good morning. Welcome. I know we have several others that will be joining us, but we want to be respectful of your time and we have a lot to cover this morning. So thank you for being here. I'm Terry Kimball, President and CEO of the Chandler Chamber, and we are really excited to bring you another session in our public policy series. I do want to do a shout out to our sponsors, which are Air Products and Chemicals, Edward Jones, Terry McKibben, Intel, Southwest Gas, APS, SRP, and Dragon Walk restaurant. So thank you for those that are joining us and to our sponsors. It is now my pleasure to introduce our public policy chair, Elin Cruz. Elin is with SRP. So I will turn it over to you, Madam Chair, and let you conduct the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I am going to go ahead and let Anna Lozic introduce our next speaker, Representative Jennifer Germain. Thank you, Anna.
Good morning. Jennifer Germain is the current state representative from Arizona's Legislative District 18, which covers Tempe, Mesa, Chandler, and Ahwatukee. Jennifer is the chairwoman for the statewide task force investigating missing and murdered Indigenous people and sits on the Government, Elections, and Military and Veterans Affairs committees. She has spent the last 18 years in the nonprofit industry and is currently the executive director of the We the People Summit, which empowers individuals to strategize and collaborate to influence public policy. She holds a master's in public administration from ASU and decided early on that her calling was to work for positive change in the public sector. Her legislative focus is on restoring education funding, protecting our civil rights, and honoring our shared values. Jennifer decided to run for re-election because our state should be a place of safety, opportunity, and prosperity for all.
Thank you so much, Anna, Elin, and Terry, and everybody for being here today. I'm Jennifer Germain. I'm your current state representative from District 18. I wanted to talk today about our state budget and economic recovery. We are not in as bad of shape as we originally predicted. And a lot of that is because Arizona has fully implemented the overstock judgment. And that allows for taxation of goods sold over the internet. So we are collecting the TBT tax for goods sold over the internet, which has had a buffering effect as far as our brick and mortar stores being closed down during the pandemic, so that our state revenue has held fairly stable. One thing that we do have about $40 million left in the Crisis and Contingency Safety Net Fund when I checked with the Joint Legislative Budget Committee about 2 weeks ago. I've been working with the Arizona Commerce Authority and several other legislators to put together a proposal to spend 20 million of that on micro businesses in a grant program that is businesses with less than 15 employees who have been in operation for over a year, and that includes our independent contractors, our gig workers, so that they could apply for grants to help cover costs that were sunk during the economic recession, whether that is your back commercial rent, your utility bills, or any other payroll expenses you might need. So really working very closely with the Commerce Authority to make sure that we are paying attention to our smallest of family businesses who are the backbone of our economy here in Arizona, and especially here in LD 18. Other than that, I'm working pretty diligently on our missing and murdered Indigenous persons legislation. We just wrapped up our study committee, and we are going to be delivering 8 pages of recommendations and 350 pages of research to the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and Governor Ducey later on today. And we are really excited to start working on implementing some of these legislative policies, which include having all of our law enforcement agencies report missing children to the National Missing and Endangered Children databases, so that they can launch nationwide searches at the click of a button. Minutes matter when people are missing, and we really do need to have a statewide process and procedure put in place.
All right, thank you, Representative Germain. We are going to move, we're going to leave Q&A for the end for everybody. If you want to send your questions in the chat room, you can do that. And I'm going to move forward introducing our next public policy intern, Sarah Hodgner. She's going to introduce our next speaker, Representative Mitzi Epstein. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. My name is Sarah Huebner, and I am a current intern with the Chandler Chamber of Commerce. I attend Cornell University right now, and I'm really excited to be introducing Representative Epstein. State Representative Mitzi Epstein is a computer systems analyst with experience working in large international businesses and running her own small business. In the Treasury Department at Citicorp, she worked in lending and finance, and at Olin Corporation, she worked in manufacturing. These experiences have proven highly useful in her work as ranking member of the House Ways and Means Committee and in the House Commerce Committee as well. Representative Epstein was first elected to the Arizona Legislature in 2016, and she previously was elected to and served on the Kyrene School Board. She has consistently advocated for strong public schools, including funding to support better teacher pay, more counselors, and high-quality STEAM opportunities for every student, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So please join me in welcoming Representative Epstein.
Thank you, Sarah, and all who are here today. Thank you for taking your time. I am Mitzi Epstein. I'm your state representative, and I'm very much looking forward to this upcoming session. A couple of business-related work that I'm pursuing are unemployment insurance reform and a bill to help our small businesses stay open during the pandemic with support for the business owners as well as the customers. The general idea is that, you know, the pandemic, a lot of our small businesses were closed just because they had the word gym or bar in their name, or they had one kind of liquor license and another kind of liquor license. And we'd like for the decisions about whether or not to be open or closed to be based on something more relevant, like, are you operating in a safe way? So we're working up the regulations with DHS, the Department of Health, to determine what those are. And you know what? Those are pretty well known right now. We know that there's 4 factors. It's distance, masks, sanitation, and ventilation. And if you can meet those, then you can probably operate safely. And it should not matter what kind of liquor license you have anymore. That was not the best choice. So that's the work on helping independent businesses to be open. That, of course, will need compliance and enforcement, because we've seen that is key. And we're looking to the county health inspectors to help out with that. We think that in talking with them preliminarily, that we can just add some checklists for them to make sure that businesses are open in this way. Along with Rep. Germain's concepts, there are a number of folks in our caucus that are pursuing low-cost loans and grants for small businesses, and our emphasis really is on our small businesses at this point because they are the most nimble and most likely to get jobs available the fastest for folks. We really want to support our smallest businesses, and therefore my plan also comes along with some options for low-cost loans and or grants, and we've got some pretty good sources for it. As Rep. Germain mentioned, our budget is not the worst budget we've ever had coming into the year. And so, for instance, we have some general fund, possible one-time fund spending available to the tune of $93 million. We have federal coronavirus relief fund has a balance of about $425 million in it as of October. It's controlled by the governor, but that's money that's there. And then the public health emergency fund, possibly to the tune of around $50 million, it might be available. So we have some discretionary funds available in the budget that we might be able to look at for so many of our needs. And certainly unemployment is one of the needs that we have. So I'm working with a team of legislators and stakeholders and of course economists from various parts of Arizona to develop some reforms for our unemployment insurance system. The unemployment insurance system in Arizona, as you may know, is in a world of hurt, both in terms of does it provide enough to be the economic stabilizer and be the bridge to the next job that we need it to be? It really does not at this point. So for those of you who don't spend a great deal of time studying unemployment insurance, it is intended to be two things. Number one, obviously a bridge for the individual person from one job to the next job. And much more importantly, from my perspective, is it's an economic stabilizer. In fact, the CBO rated unemployment insurance benefits as the number one job creator. Job creator. Unemployment insurance is a job creator because it stops the job losses. When you've got more people with money in their pockets, they can be your customers. And we stop that spiral down of a recession. We just can stop it with appropriate unemployment insurance benefits. The Bush administration also did a study that showed that unemployment insurance created 1.75 million jobs in that recession as well. So we want this tool of our economic development to work. And therefore we're working on what is a more appropriate amount. Arizona right now has about the lowest weekly benefit of any other state. And we should do better for our people, number one. And number two, we should make this tool actually work better as an economic stabilizer. So we're looking into the benefits, an audit to improve the processing, and then we'll make sure that the funding source is fair and adequate. And that is the two basic things I'm working on. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you so much, Representative Epstein. We're gonna move to Q&A at the end, but we're gonna go now to our next Chandler Chamber Public Policy intern, Sydney Sewell, with introductions for Senator Bowie. Thank you, Sydney.
Hello, my name is Sydney Sewell. I study policy and Russian at the University of Arizona, and I'll be introducing Senator Bowie. So Senator Sean Bowie is serving his second term representing Legislative District 18, which includes Ahwatukee, South Tempe, West Chandler, and Southwest Mesa. Sean and his family first moved to Legislative District 18 in the year 1994. A product of the Korean Elementary and Tempe Union High School districts, Sean graduated from Mountain Point High School in 2002. Sean then went on to ASU, receiving degrees in political science and history. Sean received his master's degree in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon University in 2013. Prior to serving in the Senate, Sean worked for the provost office at his alma mater, Arizona State University. He worked daily on issues including expanding need-based financial aid for Arizona working families, increasing resources for first-year students, and expanding online educational opportunities and increasing access for students. Sean serves on the Senate Appropriations, Senate Finance, and Senate Commerce committees. In addition to those committees, he is intently focused on restoring education investment to our K-12 schools and higher educational institutions. In addition to his work at the Senate, Sean also works as a professor at practice at ASU School of Public Affairs, where he teaches courses on leadership, ethics, and research methods. Sean lives by the motto of his alma mater, Carnegie Mellon University, "My heart is in the work." Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Bowie, and I'm proud to represent District 18 in the state Senate. That's West Chandler. So for those of you who live in Chandler, that's everything west of Dobson Road, essentially. We also represent Ahwatukee, South Tempe, and Southwest Mesa. Always great to be here with the Chandler Chamber. Proud to be endorsed by the Chandler Chamber for the second cycle in a row. And for those of you who are small business owners who are really passionate about business issues and live in District 18, I've been unanimously endorsed by every small business group in our community, including the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, the National Federation for Independent Businesses, and every other business group, local group that's endorsed in this race. So proud of our record of bipartisan leadership and putting our community first and supporting small businesses here in our community. So a couple things. Obviously, this has not been a normal year in terms of the legislature. We pretty abruptly adjourned our session back in March because of COVID-19. And what that meant was a lot of the things that we were working on. You know, in a normal year, we pass 400 to 500 bills. And this pandemic hit right when about a lot of those bills were about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the process. So we only ended up passing about 90 bills this year. And the state budget that we passed was very bare bones. We had a surplus that was forecasted in the early part of the year, and we had a lot of plans around infrastructure, around education that we decided not to do because we were expecting a pretty big financial hit because of the pandemic, because our state is very reliant on revenue sources that are hard hit in a pandemic, like our state income tax and our state sales tax. So if you asked us back in March or April, things were looking pretty dire. You know, in January, we were forecasting $1 billion surplus for a $12 billion budget. And in March, we were looking at $1 billion deficit for this next fiscal year. Thankfully, the outlook has improved as businesses have gradually reopened, as some people have started going back to work. So now it's looking like we might have a very small surplus going into our next fiscal year, which is a relief because we were looking pretty dire 7 or 8 months ago. So we're going to be keeping a close eye on that as we go into this next legislative session, keeping an eye on that so we are responsible and prudent in our investments in this next state budget. So a couple of things that I know small business owners have asked me about that I wanted to touch on today, and then we'll take questions later. One is liability protections for small businesses. I know this is an important priority for the chamber and a lot of small business owners, businesses who want to reopen. The vast majority of businesses are doing this the right way, and they're following CDC guidelines, and they're following protocols, and they're looking out for the safety of their consumers. Of course, not every business is doing that the same way. So we want to make sure that there are protections in place, not just for businesses, but also for cities like the city of Chandler. I know this is important for them, for our universities, for our schools, but also for workers. We need to make sure that workers feel safe and they're not being forced to go to work if they feel like it's an unsafe working environment for them. So this has been a very big issue. We've been talking about it and working on it since March. There's been some confusion about, well, is Congress going to do this at the federal level? Are we going to try to do this at the state level? If you ask the governor and some of my colleagues, that they would say, well, let Congress take care of this. I don't know about you, but I don't really have a lot of faith in Congress doing much of anything over these next couple of months. So it's something that we're working on. The language is being worked on as we speak. So whether we go into a special session before January or when we go back to our regular legislative session in January, it's going to be a top priority for me and for a lot of my colleagues, because we know this is important for small businesses, and we want to make sure that they have those protections along with their workers and the other actors that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned our state budget. We're going to be really focused on the revenue numbers that are coming in. There's a lot of investments that we need to make as a state to keep growing and to keep supporting our business environment, supporting our educational institutions. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. We have a lot of infrastructure needs, not just here in the East Valley and Chandler and in Gilbert, but also in the rural parts of the state. Infrastructure investments are good in a way because a lot of the times they're one-time investments. And a lot of the asks that we get for our state budget are ongoing expenses. But if we do have a one-time surplus, infrastructure is a really good investment. It creates jobs. It's needed as our state is growing. Maricopa County is, the fastest growing county in the country. So we need to make a lot of these infrastructure investments. So that's going to be a priority for us going forward. Investments in our education system, that's always been my number one priority. We've made some progress in a positive direction over the last couple of years, especially around K-12, but we need to do a lot more. And when we look at our universities, when we look at ASU, our universities have been really hard hit by COVID-19. A lot of students have decided not to go back, especially out-of-state students have decided not to travel to Arizona. Our universities are very reliant on out-of-state students for revenue. So the universities are really hurting. And as some of you might know, Arizona has cut more funding from our state universities than any state in the country since 2008. Tuition has increased at the highest rate of any state in the country since 2008. So the governor likes to talk about investments in K-12, which is good, but we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that our universities, our community colleges, we don't fund our community colleges at statewide level at all. Those are areas that are really in need of investment if we want to continue to grow our economy, create good paying jobs, investing in workforce development. Those things are really critically important. So that's something that I'm going to be pushing. I'm going to continue to push, like I have in recent sessions next year, to make sure we're investing in our universities. We get asked a lot about when the legislature is going back in session. We kind of cut things short in March. We officially adjourned the session back in May when the virus was really at a high point. We have a lot of folks asking us, why don't you go back into session? The governor is issuing a lot of emergency declarations. We should be getting people back to work. We should be getting people, back to school, which I agree. It's important that we reopen. The legislative session we're not in session right now. So there's only two ways we can go into a special session if we wanted to do that. One is the governor can call it just himself. That's a power that he has. And he can determine what we work on in that special session. So if it's just going to be COVID-19, if it's just going to be the business liability protections that I mentioned earlier, those are things that we can narrow our focus on. The other way we can go back into a special session, which some of my colleagues are advocating for, we would need a 2/3 majority in both chambers, in the House and the Senate. So you would need bipartisan agreement, since neither party has the supermajority, to go back into a special session. But the thing about a special session called by the legislature is you can then do whatever you want. It's like a regular session. There's no guardrails, and that's concerning to some of us. If we were to go into special session just for COVID-19 related measures and there was a promise to do that, I would sign up for that. But my colleagues who are most vocal about going into a special session, there's a lot of other things they want to do that are not pertinent to COVID-19. And if we are going to go back into a special session, we're seeing another rise in COVID-19 cases right now. We're seeing it in other states, but also here in Arizona. Remember, when we go into session, it's not just the 90 of us. It's staff, it's the media. The legislature is closed to the public right now. And do we have to reopen the galleries? Are people going to get sick? I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to consider other than just the issues that we want to deal with when we're in session. So if we are going to go into session, it's got to be related to COVID-19. It's going to be related to helping small businesses, helping our schools, helping our workers. That's my priority. So we've asked the governor several times to call a special session related to COVID-19 relief. That may happen after the election next week. The election's in 4 days, not that we're counting. So once the election is over, we might go back. My prediction is we will not be going into a special session. We will go back in January. When the full legislature can come back, we will have COVID-19 safety protocols in place when we reopen. And that's when we're going to tackle a lot of these issues. So that's all the content I had for you today. I'm happy to take any questions. If you do live in District 18, would love to have your support. We're excited for this election to conclude and hopefully get back to work in January if we are reelected. So I want to thank the Chamber for their support and thank everyone on the call for all the work that you do to support our small business community here in Chandler. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bowie. Good updates from everybody. Thank you so much, really, for joining us this morning. We're gonna move to some of the Q&A right now. And let me go into the chat room. There is one question maybe for Representative Germain. It says, is the 20 million in grants for micro businesses something that is happening for sure? Or are you working to make it happen? If for sure, when does it start?
We are working to make it happen. It is a bicameral, bipartisan effort working to make it happen. It is not for sure at this point.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's see. We have this other question. When session opens in January, what will social distancing look like on the legislative floor?
I'll tell you what, if only we knew is the answer. And so I've been working with our leadership team and our hopefuls for leadership teams in a collaborative way in the House. And our plan is to convene a committee to make some of those final decisions. In the meantime, there's work possibly being done of plexiglass between desks. And of course, one of the most important things that we need is to make sure we have a very useful teleconferencing tool, because basically we're going to continue to work like this. We really need to make sure that we are teleconferencing a lot of our work. We just cannot be in a huge gathering, as Senator Bowie indicated. Any of our chambers, it's not just the representatives, it's all the many, many staff. And you are talking about over 25, over 50, nearly 100 people very quickly. So we are going to need some really excellent teleconferencing tools. And I'm talking with Microsoft and a couple of other platforms about ways that we can use those tools and still have legislators vote using the online tools and make sure that it's a valid, secure vote as well.
Yeah, and during the end of the last session, we actually had a protocol in place where certain members would go to the floor at certain times. So in 10-minute increments, you would rotate in and out just to ensure that there was never more than 30 people on the floor at the same time for social distancing measures.
One thing I'll add to that too, I know back in March when, we were shutting everything down and being overly, being cautious and careful about COVID was, our Senate president made the point that, if we can't have people in the gallery, we can't have the public in committee hearings, sharing their perspectives and sharing their voice. I mean, that's a concern. So we do go back in January. It's not just about us and it's not just about staff and the media, it's about the public. And we want the public to be able to participate in democracy in the democratic process. So how are we going to do that? I mean, the gallery, people are going to be allowed to sit in the gallery. They're going to have to sit 6 seats apart. The committee hearings are pretty small for anybody who's been to a committee hearing at the legislature. So we want people to be able to participate, testify in committee, make their voices heard, meet with us if they have particular concern about a bill. So how are we going to do that? So that's another thing that we're tackling as well.
A lot to think about for sure, and a lot of planning. Okay, let's see, what other question do we have here? So will the bills that got sidelined last session get any kind of priority status, or are we starting from scratch?
I know that's another issue that we've been talking over, and my feeling is that we really need to make sure that we give them some priority. Those that have already gone through the process and have been approved in many different ways, we really need to prioritize them in the first week. You know, what's to stop them from just being, let's have a very busy first week getting through the bills that we should have been doing in the past. But all of that, that's not a promise, that's a hope, because, you know, we haven't even had an election yet.
Yeah, a lot of it will depend on what happens on Tuesday. But we did discuss this back when we were in session, and there were a lot of important bills that got 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way through the process that were not successful. So our current leadership has talked about making those priority bills for next year. A lot of them are agency bills, you know, that are really important to, say, the Department of Education or the Department of Transportation. So a lot of those bills will be coming back. Then on top of the new bills that, you know, new members of the legislature want to bring forward. So my expectation is it's going to be a very busy, very long session for that reason and a lot of other reasons in January.
Yeah, and some of those bills have even popped up as executive orders in the interim. So we saw the telehealth bill pop up as an executive order. That was one of those really important bills that got 2/3 of the way through the process. So the governor is taking some action on some of those very important bills that were kind of left hanging.
Thank you. There's one more question here. It's what are your plans to address quality early learning and childcare? Quality early learning options have been limited, especially in low-income communities before the pandemic. But the impact of COVID closures has further exacerbated the issue. So what are your thoughts about these? Are there conversations taking place to address these?
Yes, so thank you so much for this question, because childcare is a business issue. When parents have safe, secure places for their children to go, they can return to the workforce. So we, unfortunately, Arizona did lose our federal pre-K funding. So we have a bill that made it, again, 2/3 of the way through to restore some of that through state funding. We're going to be looking for areas where we can add more additional funding into that. In the meantime, I've been working very, very closely with Phoenix Tool Bank and with some of our other phenomenal nonprofit organizations here in Arizona to make sure that all of our childcare facilities and early learning facilities have access to PPE, cleaning supplies, and are able to open their doors safely and provide a secure place for children to go during the day.
We have, in June, when we were sort of out of session, we organized several work groups in the House Democratic Caucus, and they have since become bicameral work groups. And one of them is the Strong Schools work group that is very much focused on not just K-12, but also everything that our families need to help children learn. And, you know, I couldn't agree with Representative Jennifer Germain more that childcare is a business issue, and that so many of our parents who are working parents are actually not in the unemployment rolls and not being counted, because to some extent they have to be home with their kids because they've either chosen to do school from home or school is just totally up in the air and we don't know, you know, many parents don't know, is my child's school going to be in session next week or not? And what will they be doing in the month after that? So our schools and our, you know, looking after our children and keeping our businesses running, those two always go together. And therefore we do need some very strong plans. We're looking forward to some good solutions coming out of our Strong Schools work group and a number of other groups that are looking into that. And so stay in touch and keep our feet to the fire on that. That's very important that you hold your legislators accountable to that. I don't have a real solid idea of what we're going to do, but I know we need an idea, and I know we've got people working on it.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Childcare is of the essence for the workforce. Well, this leads me to one last question. What do you feel are the top priorities that legislature will be facing in 2021? If you can name three or however many you want to name, but what are the top priorities? What are we gonna be starting with next year?
Yeah. The economy, the economy, the economy. We need to shore up our economy so that we do not have another crash like we saw in 2007 to 2010. And this is going to be a multi-year climbing back out of this hole. So our number one, number two, number three priorities are the economy.
I think an important part of that is going to be affordable housing too. So our education system is, you know, for me, the 1, 2, and 3 are our education system is wobbly and hurting, and we need the funding to hold it up. We should look into a poverty rate, if you will, an opportunity rate in our education funding system, and we need to look at funding for our school buildings. These are just a couple of our really pressing education needs. We also have to look at affordable housing because there are just far too many people who have worked all their lives and they're looking at being close to retirement, and all of a sudden they can't afford a home. And we just can't let that keep happening. That's no way to treat people, and it's really bad for the economy. It's again, contributes to that recessionary spiral that we do not want to happen. So we have to come up with some good solutions for affordable housing, and to some extent, better wages always help, but we need a lot more than that. We need a full housing system that works in Arizona. And finally, I've always focused on clean air. As you may know, Maricopa County has a deadline in 2024 that we are not on track to meet still. We have too many days when we exceed the limits for ozone and particulates, but our biggest problem is ozone in Arizona, especially in Maricopa County. And we really need to come up with some strategies to improve that, because if not, then the requirements are that businesses cannot expand, and nobody wants that. That's just the worst way to handle this. So a much better way will be to work now towards mitigating our clean air problems with solutions that are helpful to business, that grow green jobs, that literally let's plant some trees and sink some of that ozone instead of always trying to look at business to make them do something different. There are a lot of things we can do, and we've got to do them so that we can keep our economy thriving.
I'll echo what Representative Germain said about the economy. That's obviously going to be critically important. COVID-19 as well. It's not going away anytime soon. We did pass some relief back in March. Most of that relief has run out. We've gotten some CARES Act funding from Congress. The governor has to use that by the end of the year. There's been talk about a second CARES Act package. It doesn't look like Congress is going to do anything until after the election, depending on what happens in the election and who's in office in January. There's still a need for additional support, for additional testing, for PPE. There's been talk about aid to state and local governments. I know the folks on the line from the city of Chandler would certainly appreciate that. But we're looking at that to see what Congress is going to do, and if they are going to pass additional relief for state and local governments, because that would help us, because state and city governments have to balance their budgets every year. The Congress and the federal government does not have to do that. So if we're receiving a lot less revenue coming in because people are not buying as many things, they're not eating out, or they're losing their jobs, we would have to make cuts, things like education and healthcare and infrastructure and all of those things. So those are all critically important. We're going to have to reassess in January where we are in terms of PPE equipment for our schools, for our businesses, where are we at with testing. So that's going to be a really big priority for us in January as well. And the third thing is something I mentioned earlier. It's continuing our investment in education. Part of helping the economy is growing that economy and creating good paying jobs. And how do we do that? By making investments in higher education and workforce development. Those are all things that we're going to need to address in January as well.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of work to be done this next session. We're gonna stop Q&A right now, and if you
Hold on.
still have, if any of our guests has any other questions, you can still send them in the chat room. We'll see if we have time towards the end. But I wanted to take a minute to invite County Supervisor and Vice Chair Jack Sellers to give us an update. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, yeah, let me just talk a little bit about what we're doing with the election process. You know, with all the unusual challenges, we expect a relatively smooth election process this time. Our Board of Supervisors Elections Director Scott Jarrett, working with the Recorder's Office Elections Director Ray Valenzuela, have really worked well together to get us through a lot of really crazy issues during this election. Here in Chandler, I've helped resolve a couple of things. First, Mark Stewart called me a week or two ago and told me they had asked for a ballot drop box at City Hall and were told it would take a week to get one. I was able to get one delivered before the end of that day. Second, Councilmember Terry Rowe called me this week and said the city clerk wanted to extend hours for ballot drop off at City Hall because of the volume of ballots that they were getting there. They wanted to extend from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And they were told that they had to have approval from the county to do that because the ballot collection process is a fairly complicated schedule. Well, anyway, Terry talked to me and I was able to rearrange the ballot pickup schedule to get that schedule in place by the following day. Talk some about small business grants because I think most of you know that the cities over 500,000 got their own grant, their own CARES Act grant funds. But the county has been responsible for a large extent for the smaller cities and towns. So we started out with $23 million in our small business grant fund. And after, I don't know, several weeks, we had only given out less than $2 million. So I talked to Terry Kimball to find out what was going on, why we weren't getting better response on that. And it turned out that a lot of the problem was because people who had gotten PPP loans, that was being counted as a part of their revenue and was disqualifying them for the grants. So in a short amount of time, we got that fixed. And shortly after that, then we started running out of funds. So we added $40 million more to that fund because as has been mentioned by the representatives and by the senator, keeping our small businesses in business is really a critical part of this economy. So that with the funds we have available, that really needs to be a focus. So we ended up now with $63 million and it looks like those funds would run out by Wednesday of next week. So I now have $10 million in additional funds on the ballot on Monday for our board to approve to get that extended to November 16th. So we are doing a lot of work and working with the chambers in particular because they're the ones that can really tell us what's going on. And I'll just point out, I had to smile a little bit on the news last night. They were talking about the city of Phoenix is getting a lot of coverage because they're going to distribute $1 million to small businesses over the next couple of weeks. We have given out small business grants to 270 businesses so far in Chandler with a maximum grant of $25,000. And you know, we're well beyond $1 million in what we've done just in Chandler in my district. So I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish with the funds we have. Just quickly, as you all know, we've dealt with a lot of conflicting arguments on the mask requirement. You know, it should be obvious to anybody that I'm as anxious as anyone to get our businesses back to normal as quickly as possible. But, you know, if you listen to the medical authorities in our region, part of the process for accomplishing that is doing everything we can to mitigate this virus. And mask is one of the things that they're telling us is working and helps, and that we need to continue doing that. I'm also getting feedback from school superintendents telling me that please don't take away the mask requirement, because if you do, we'll have teachers quitting. So, but as you know, there are a lot of really loud people out there. They're very critical of the mask requirement. And so it's there's been a lot of pressure. I am scheduled later today to present another 10,000 clear masks to the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They came to us a few months ago and pointed out that wearing a mask was creating a problem for them, because the people they communicate with and the way they get communications from other people depends on a lot on lip reading, and in some cases even on facial expression. And so we were able to get 10,000 masks for them. They contacted us about a month ago and said they had run out of masks. So I went back to our sources and was able to acquire another 10,000 masks that we're going to donate to them today. So as was mentioned earlier, I'm currently vice chair of the Board of Supervisors, and assuming I can survive an election, I'll be chair next year and able to play a significant role in setting the agenda for the board, and particularly for our district. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
This is Terry, Supervisor Sellers, Vice Chair Sellers. I would just like to say I have been so impressed with the funding that has come through for our businesses. We've had about 268 businesses that have applied for the Maricopa County grant as of a couple of weeks ago, and $5.5 million has come into the city of Chandler businesses alone. That's just Chandler. That is pretty remarkable, and I want to thank you for your efforts in really listening to the concerns of businesses.
Well, and one of the arguments I've made at the county is that if we end up with CARES Act funds left at the end of this year, shame on us. We need to be doing everything we can to help people and businesses to get through this. And so, you know, I've also had a lot of focus on trying to ensure that people who maybe are employed but marginal on being able to keep in their homes or in their rental apartments, we want to ensure that they don't become part of the homeless problem when they just need a little bit of help to get them through this. So lots of things to do, and we need to really work hard to ensure that we're using those funds the best way we can.
Thank you,
Any other
Supervisor.
questions?
Oh. We'll see if we get questions in the chat room. I'll check here in a minute. Thank you so much for the update. And yeah, pretty impressive. All the work that you're doing, very impressive. Thank you for that and all the support to the businesses. Next, I would like to invite Inder Gunala from the Office of Senator Kirsten Sinema for an update.
Hi, everyone. I think you can hear me. I wasn't quite sure I was giving an update today, so it's good to hear from everyone. Things continue to hold where we are. Can folks hear me? I just want to make sure. Yep. Okay. Yeah, things continue to hold where they are. You know, the senator continues to be focused on any opportunities to move another coronavirus package through. We think there may be some chance for that after the election here, although the prospect of it happening before, obviously, the election being just a couple days away, are pretty low. But we will continue, look and observe opportunities coming into the lame duck or going into the next Congress. If there's anything that we can do to support your guys' work, please, please, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us very simply at outreach@cinema.senate.gov. It was great hearing from everybody this morning. We wish you guys luck and look forward to working with everyone into the next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Ender. And last, I'm requesting an update from Councilmember elect Christine Ellis. Did we lose?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I had to be re-added in. So at this time, sorry, I'm going to remove that picture so I can show my face. And here I am. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Really appreciated the opportunity to say hi. And the last two policy meeting I was on, and this one also, great information, everyone. Thank you again, Ms. Terry, for allowing me to say a few words. Ms. Helen, appreciate you chairing this whole party here. And our representative, both Ms. Germain and Ms. Epstein, thank you for your updates. Really appreciate it. Senator Bowie, thank you again. Nice seeing you on this screen. I have not seen you for a little bit since COVID. Everybody's been in hiding. Mr. Jack, here you are. Hello, how are you this morning? Everybody's looking really good and ready for a great race coming up. I believe we are all excited about what's coming up down the pipe. Thank you for giving me the opportunity again. As I said earlier, I love the fact that we are working together for the good of everyone and to bring to the table what our businesses are needed in Chandler. I am sitting right now thinking that in the next few months, it's going to be a great ramping up for everyone to get things started. And I'm doing the same thing myself. As being a new kid on the block, I'm learning quite a bit and I'm advancing lots of different policies we're looking at. I'm working with the police. I'm also working with some of the school concerning higher education. I am doing my best to stay engaged with our diversity offices. And we are touring pretty much a lot of the head departments right now. It's a great thing. I'm learning a lot. I'm excited to work with the chamber and continue pushing Chandler forward into the manner that we are elected to do so. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. I'm looking forward to work with all of you once the race is over. If I can be of any help for any one of you, I am available and I will be more than happy to work together with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Christine, I have to tell you, I really like the hat.
The hat in the back.
The one you had on in the picture before you came
Oh,
on.
that's right. I do have it here, and it's one of my hat. I decided I've been wearing that because in the beginning of the race, there was somebody made a comment how Christine was gonna throw her hat in after. So I decided, okay, it's time for me to wear my hat and keep throwing it in. So it's important. Thank you.
And I know, Christine, that you've been working a lot with the folks at the City of Chandler now. I've been impressed at some of the things that the Chandler Police Department is doing now to try to move us forward in resolving some of these issues.
As you said, it is such a wonderful thing that they are doing. Yesterday, we had an opportunity to tour the police department, both our Councilmember-elect Harris and myself. I think the highlight was that we get to sit in the car and drive the car, and it was amazing. But the words that they have spoken, the way that they impressed on us that our city is very safe at this time. We are all geared up, everybody's ready. And what I want to tell Chandler, you can sleep well at night because we have a chief who's on top of it. He has it together over there. So I'm very impressed with that. I'm currently talking to him about helping out with the task force for mental health, because that's something that's very close to my heart. My background being in nursing and also in psych. as he had told me many times, that out of the 3% that they interface with, 2% have some type of mental health issues. And it is my desire and it is on my heart to work with him and empower him and his team to be able to serve our residents that are experiencing mental health issues in our city.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of our speakers today. Thank you, Representative Germain, Epstein, and Senator Bowie for joining us today for all the very important updates. I want to encourage everybody to vote. Go out and vote. Bring your friends and family, please. If you need any assistance, if you need to check on the Chandler's Chambers positions, we have a voting card up on our website. We're sharing the candidates we're endorsing and as well as our stance on propositions. So be sure to go and check it out. And please vote. Let's all vote. We look forward to having you on our next call starting in January. We're not going to have sessions in November and December due to the holidays and everything that's going on, but we'll regroup in January with other sessions. So we hope to have you all join us then. In the meantime, on behalf of the Chandler Chamber, Terry, our CEO, and all of the board members, thank you so much. Have a good day and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.